macroalgae everybody is looking for, blue octodes or blue Hypnia. In this video we're going to be looking at this macroalgae and I'm going to be telling you my thoughts on it, how to grow it, and also trying to work out what it is. Let's start with what we call it. Now I've noticed in America it tends to be called blue Hypnia, and in the UK, probably because of mostly my era, it's called blue octodes. But blue Hypnia and blue octodes are completely different species. They are completely different macroalgae entirely. But how do you ID them? This is the main problem. Although they are completely different, they grow in completely different oceans, they look very similar. As with a lot of macroalgae, this one tends to be really difficult to ID successfully. As I've mentioned, some people call it Hypnia, some people call it Octodes. The only way people are IDing this is visually. This causes a massive problem. Lots of macroalgae cannot be identified visually, especially the difference between blue octodes and blue Hypnia. People are saying it's to do with growth patterns or coloration, and this is all anecdotal because I know from first-hand experience this, whatever it is, octodes or Hypnia, can grow in different growth patterns dependent on the environment that it's living in. I'll put up a picture now just to highlight that. So here you can quite clearly see the same macroalgae growing in two different ways. Now I promise you this is from the same mother sample. So I took a little bit from my main tank that I used to have, I transferred it into my tubs, and you can see on one side it's grown really dense and really quite a different purpley blue colour, and on the other side it's grown really quite thick and fluorescent blue. And that's why you can't use your eyes to ID it, because simply the environment that you're growing it in can alter how it looks, and that is not a very good way of IDing things. Another example of this is coloration. People are saying that blue octodes is a more purple colour than Hypnia, which is a brighter blue. But look at this. What would you ID this as? This is the same as everything else I've shown you, but as you can witness with your own eyes, it's bright white, and that's to do with the fact this light is too bright. However, it's still growing, and that just shows you that visually IDing blue Hypnia or blue octodes is a complete waste of time. You need to find an expert who knows exactly what they're doing under a microscope, and you also need to know the region of the world that it was collected. If you don't have those two things, you are just guessing. So let's talk about how to keep blue octodes. I found blue octodes, or blue Hypnia, I'm going to refer to it as blue octodes from now on, is really quite easy. However, there are some basic things you need to understand. Firstly, as we just seen, don't overexpose it to too much light. I found blue octodes is quite happy under most lighting conditions, even under which you might find too dim for other species. You only will get a fluorescence in bright lighting, and you will only normally see it from the surface of the aquarium. You can quite clearly see that here. We get the nice blue fluorescent colour from the surface, and that's down to the amount of lighting we've got here. We've got a blue actinic, we've got some LED bars, and so on. So we're getting a nice blue colour. But let me turn a light bar off, and you can see it's slightly less blue. So there we have it. It's affected by lighting. In terms of where it grows, it'll grow pretty much anywhere. One thing I have found though is it prefers to grow on the edges of tanks. You can see quite clearly here it's growing in like a ridge form along the side of the tank, and it prefers this. It also likes to grow with water flow underneath it, so that's why I grow it on egg crate, and I grow it on these little legged holders here. One thing you mustn't do is take it out of the water for too long, because it will dry out. But while I've got it out, we'll take a look at how it looks under normal light. I find this a lot when I send it to people and they receive it in this colour. It's brown, and I get messages going, well, it's supposed to be blue. This is what it looks like outside of the water. It can be a few different shades of grey or burgundy colour, but essentially it's not blue when it's not in your aquarium. It's kind of a brown, boring colour. However, put it back in, and ta-da! we have our blue colour. So you just have to be aware of that. If you order it, you may not be receiving a fluorescent blue piece of algae. One thing I will note though, if you do receive this in the post and it's bright red, it's dead. It's got too cold and it has died. And that is a big issue with sending this macroalgae. It's very, very hard to ship because one, it's quite brittle, it snaps easily, and also it just doesn't like cold weather, so you have to treat it very, very carefully. Through experimentation and growing this species for a few years, I've found that it likes a reasonable amount of flow on it because that will stop dust and debris from settling on it. When you start getting dust and debris settling on it, you get areas like this where hair algae starts to colonise and starts to overgrow your blue octodes. Other than that, it's a really easy species to keep. Nutrient wise, it tells you what it needs. If it's a dark, vibrant blue colour like this, you know it's happy. Once it starts to get lighter, it'll either be too much light or you might find it's running out of iron or other nutrients. And it's as simple as dosing your tank as required and it will tend to go back to its blue colour. This algae though is quite an invasive species. Two reasons cause this. Firstly, at a certain point, this will grow so dense that the bottom layer dies, and what happens is it will raft away and float around your aquarium. So that can cause it to spread naturally through your tank. Secondly, it doesn't need a lot to actually reproduce. All it will take is the tiniest fragment. Even this is too large. I found that even something as small as this amount can spread through your tank, and that can cause an issue if you're trying to keep it separate from other species. And that's one of the reasons why I am keeping this in a separate tub to itself, and one which, if anything escapes, it goes straight into my sump and filtration. It will and can attach itself to other species, and it will and can overgrow those species, and that includes corals as well. This is quite capable of smothering out corals. That being said, I do like blue octodes, blue hypnea, because of its colour. It's something different. I don't think there are many other species, potentially Laurentia, maybe some Dictoria species, blue scroll and so on, that gives you that blue colour. This is one of the most blue and maybe the most common you'll find on the hobby trade. So give it a go. But I would say just be really careful when you introduce it. Watch out for fragmentation, and if it lands on anything that you don't want it growing on, remove it as soon as possible. The normal critters and things will eat this, the normal tangs. Anything that eats other macroalgae is also going to eat blue octodes. There you go, that's blue octodes or blue hypnea. Just call it whatever you want and be aware that you're probably wrong. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please leave a like and also subscribe to my channel. Once again, thanks for watching and happy fish keeping.